without him. You just look at the body of work he's done over the since I've been here, regular season and postseason. He's been our backbone. He's been, the most important piece for us, and he's just been incredible each and every night. Gives us a chance every single night. Whether, even if you look back to game 2 of the series, we did not play very well in front of him in the first 10 minutes, and they score 3 goals, and he just shuts the door the rest of the way, basically. So we're so lucky to have him. He is such a very important piece to what we have, and then his calmness and how he works and how he prepares, and even the stuff he's doing there today. Like, he's just such a professional and somebody that I lean on a lot, and I've learned so much from, even though he's a goalie.
All the way on the left, George.
This one's for both of y'all. Does it matter where you guys play? I mean, it's going to be crazy in there tomorrow, but you guys seem to be pretty good at quieting down road crowds.
Yeah, we don't really try to think where we are, where we play, but obviously it's fun to be at home, have the home energy, have the home crowd, and be able to play in front of them. So I'm sure it's going to be a loud building, and we're looking forward for it.
Yeah, I'm excited to play at home. It's a great opportunity, and our fans have given us so much love and support and momentum this year that they deserve this type of game at home. So we're excited to play in front of them.
Front left, David.
Hey guys, it could be for either of you. You guys have scored multiple goals in the first period of every game this series. How important has that been, sort of, to dictate the tempo of the game and make them chase you? They've barely led throughout this series.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge to start well, and obviously we want to, keep doing that. But at the same time, it's a long game, and we've seen during the series that we have to play good the whole 60 minutes, and obviously we want to have a good start and feel good and keep building on that. But at the same time, we have to be dialed for the whole 60 minutes.
Right side, third row.
Good chance to send those Florida Panthers fans home happy tonight. Again, it is a home game in Game 6 with a chance to repeat as Stanley Cup champions. 8 o'clock puck drop. So we will be pulling for those Panthers.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Good afternoon to you. Welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We are tracking a breaking news story this afternoon, an arrest in connection with a 2021 infant death investigation. This is a Volusia County man, 27-year-old Donovan Winter, who has been arrested in connection with the death of his 2-month-old son. Now, this happened in Brevard County in Merritt Island back in 2021. According to investigators there, they say the infant died from multiple blunt impact head injuries. Donovan Winter, you see his mugshot there, now being held at the Brevard County Jail without bond. He's charged with felony murder and also with aggravated child abuse. Fox 35's Randy Hildreth following up on this story. We will check in with her at the bottom of the hour. It is 4 o'clock, though. That means it's time for today's Top 4 at 4, where we break down 4 of the big stories that we're tracking in the Fox 35 newsroom this afternoon. And joining me for today's Top 4 at 4 is Fox 35 News anchor John Brown. John,
yeah, lots of very interesting news taking place right now. Let's start with President Trump. Just had a meeting in the Situation Room at the White House. So they're now weighing the response in the Israel-Iran war. A U.S. official now telling Fox News that strikes on targets inside of Iran, including nuclear facilities, are on the table at this point. As you can see, the view right there, quiet at this hour. The official added that U.S. strikes on targets inside of Iran could happen within days unless something is done. The development comes after Trump said earlier today that Iran no longer has control of its airspace. He said, quote, "We now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran." That's what he wrote on Truth Social. Trump also said today that the U.S. knows exactly where Iran's supreme leader is hiding. And although he is a, quote, easy target, the U.S. won't kill him, quote, at least not for now. So escalating, not for sure what Trump is trying to do with this one or sending a message. A lot of times messages are sent out like this. It's very crafted. I don't know if this was the case or if Trump is just sounding off here. But maybe, I mean, that's if you're the supreme leader there and you just see a tweet or a Truth Social post like that, it certainly makes you think twice about your next move.
Well, then
that's for sure.
He followed that one up with this one that says in all caps, unconditional surrender. So you certainly know what they are kind of aiming for at this point. Again, you mentioned the meeting with the national security advisors in the Situation Room this afternoon. So certainly a developing situation here.
Yeah.
For him to leave the G7 going on in Canada and to come back to the White House to handle this.
It's serious business. And one of the generals that I speak with quite often said, what you're not seeing right now is all the people on the ground there who hate the leadership in Iran. There's so many groups that want the current, because they are brutal to the people. And he said what may actually happen here is we can just, or Israel in this case, can just start it and then step back and let the people take over. Which would be, his point was, that's the best case scenario, because then it's not somebody on the outside imposing their will. It's allowing the people there to rise up and take over for themselves. And we've seen it happen in other countries. Yeah. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But as he said, it can't get much worse for the people who are there. So it gives them an opportunity to maybe take care of themselves.
Meanwhile, both of those countries have still been exchanging, missile attacks. And I know Fox 35's Marie Ettinger spoke last night with an Orlando man who had flown to Israel on Thursday night.
Wow.
Gotten there just before all of this kind of really began taking off on Friday, and he talked a little bit about what the situation is like there in Israel right now.
Yesterday, which is there was some major impacts there from rockets, and I went there with a few other people, with the people at this organization here, to give out like food and sandwiches to the soldiers that are searching through the wreckage looking for missing people. And it was like words can't describe what it looks like over there. Like, I mean, the areas that were hit the hardest are kind of like closed off, and only the soldiers are there, people kind of like the rescue team. But you could see the windows in the whole area, like for blocks, all the windows are busted out. There's glass and just debris everywhere. The cars are covered in a thick layer of like dust. It's like gray. The windows on the cars are smashed just from debris and shrapnel falling through them. And this is like for blocks. And it's like it looks like it's like apocalyptic.
And he said they also have been spending a lot of time in the the air raid shelters, because the alarms will start going off and they have to go down there for 30 minutes, an hour at a time.
Yeah, I would love to travel to that area, but every time I think about it, something like this happens. I'm like, maybe in a few years we'll do that trip. So
scary.
All right, next up, 2 production companies hired to help put on the Electric Daisy Carnival have been cited by OSHA for serious violations after a man was killed after part of the stage structure collapsed on him. This happened last year. Michel Aguirre, he's 33. He was a well-known and well-liked stagehand from Texas. He was killed back in October of last year, just days before the carnival. A black steel piece of scaffolding fell on top of him, according to the police reports. Now, we didn't hear much about the incident. We did the public records request, and that's when we found out that the fines were going to be coming out, and now that's escalated as well after they've concluded this whole investigation there.
Tragic situation there. Yeah.
All right, next up, Attorney General James Uthmeier has announced the statewide results of Florida's participation in a nationwide organized retail theft blitz operation. More than 40 arrests in this case. FDLE joined law enforcement agencies and retailers from across the state to take down more than 40 criminals. You're seeing images from the arrest here from the Orlando PD. The nationwide blitz operation targeted criminals and organized crime rings that prey on retailers. Authorities said that those stole a range of merchandise, including personal grooming products, clothing, sporting goods, and home repair tools. Talking about $200,000 recovered in assets, and they were just stealing everything. It looks like this is one of those where I think a lot of stuff gets stolen straight online, and that's the business model, because you can see the stuff they're selling right there. And like one of the officers said, anytime you see something that's maybe too good to be true, sometimes it is, sometimes it's stolen.
That's a good point.
That pretty much sums up the online shopping at some point.
Well, and the thing that I think is can be frustrating is because you hear so much about how widespread that is, how much retailers nowadays are struggling with shoplifting,
right?
And that raises prices for everybody else too.
Well, and it's ridiculous that you go into a CVS and you're like, I need razor blades. call security, they'll bring the
get it.
key over. I'm like, but that's what they say. Those things are so expensive now. It's a high dollar item. Everything like that is now under lock and key.
Yeah, that is
yeah.
another
sad.
impact of it.
All right, Orlando Magic made it official today, introducing their new guard, Desmond Bane, and there he is in the Magic uniform. He's a part of that huge trade that sent a couple of players and several first-round picks to Memphis. I know a lot of people don't know the name, they don't know the player yet, but if you just read the headlines, you understand why this is getting so much attention. Yahoo Sports, they lauded this deal, saying, playing it safe does not create championship opportunities for the Magic. The Ringer says the Desmond Bane trade is a risk the Magic had to take. ESPN writes, why every NBA team is watching the Desmond Bane trade fallout. So, you know, if you don't watch the NBA very often, you don't know this guy. I don't know him well. I haven't watched much of his play. But when you see everybody who knows what they're talking about say stuff like this, you know it's a big deal for him to be here.
Well, you know, the Magic and Magic fans hoping he's kind of the missing piece here that they can help with that struggling offense that we saw so much during this past season, especially something they struggled with. Desmond Bane did speak to reporters today, and you know, he talked about how the time really is now for this team with the talent that's already here.
It's time to win. You know, I mean, it's pretty much simple as that. You know, if we do what we're supposed to do, those, not to say the picks were invaluable, but they would have fell in a place that, you know, we have, like I said, we got a lot of young talent here already in the building, and we have a lot of talent at the top of the roster. So I think it's a perfect time, you know, for the organization to do what they did. And I mean, I was talking with my agent prior to everything going down after the season ended, and you know, if there was ever any chance I get traded, like, where's some of the spots you want to go? And I mean, I promise you, Orlando was right at the top of the list. So it's a perfect fit.
Desmond, do you get insulted at all that you hear Stephen A. Smith say the Magic gave up too much?
No. I'll just say no. I'll just say no. No, leave it at that. My first day on the job.
So you know, and I think giving up those draft picks does show that they're in win now mode, because they've got a solid core. Just needs some of those other pieces. So hoping Bane will maybe be that. Also interesting, he said he was already in Florida when he found out about the trade. He was nice. Vacationing in Destin, so still a ways away, but in the Sunshine State, closer than Memphis.
I don't know if you guys caught Stephen A. Smith today talking about you know what he's saying there. I mean, I've had some friends in Memphis. The former editor of the Orlando Sentinel is there. It's a rough town. There's no question. But when he said, like, nobody wants to play there, even Jimmy Butler said, you can trade me anywhere but Memphis. I mean, you see why a guy's so happy. I feel bad for our guys who are going there, maybe. I mean, I go to Memphis quite often, but, man, when you're a target, like these guys, I mean, he was saying you could be a target. A nice car in Memphis, you're a target, and the guys don't want to play there. So hopefully that's also an impetus for Memphis to fix it up, to solve some of the issues. I'm from St. Louis. I'm not talking out of turn here. We had the same issues there when it came to NFL because the players wouldn't want to go there because they couldn't park their car. So there you have it.
Gosh. All right, well, that is today's Top Forward 4. John, we appreciate you joining us. Got to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, and we will be right back.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
And Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Noah Berggren joins me now. And Noah, it is a steamy Tuesday out there.
It is for sure, Garrett, and it's not going to change anytime soon. We're stuck with where we are with these temperatures for quite a while. I'll show you what's going on outside right now. We're into the 90s in most places, about 92 in Orlando, currently 93 in Ocala. We're coming up just after 4:15 today, and we're nearing those peak temperatures for the time of year, about 90 in West Palm, 90 in Fort Myers, 92 currently up in Tallahassee. Average high this time of the year is about 91, so that's pretty typical for the middle part of June. All right, so there's the view downtown tonight. Nice night ahead, but not a lot of storms. The headlines this week are pretty consistent with what we're expecting. Hotter than normal by a few degrees. Again, average high is 91. And drier than normal. Lower than average rain chances, especially for the next week or so. There'll be one exception on Friday, we think, but for the most part, it's lower than typical rain chances, and nothing of note in the tropics really for any time soon. It looks like the Atlantic may not have a named storm until possibly July, which if that does end up being the case, it would be the first time since 2019 we have not had a named storm in June in the Atlantic basin. So that is certainly of note. We do have a little bit of recency bias, as I'm calling it, where we've had so many unusually early and fast starts to the seasons the last several years. Many people have asked us where all the storms are so far. The average first storm actually is June 20th, which is still 3 days from now in the Atlantic basin. So we'll knock on some wood that things stay quiet. Here's the precip forecast for the next 10 days. Below average on the east coast of the U.S. down to Florida. Above average in the Midwest, the high plains, and the Southwest, where there'll be more active patterns. Notice those rain chances, they're pretty low Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. They come up just a little bit for Thursday and Friday. That's probably what's more average this time of the year, is a rain chance about 50 to 60% as opposed to 30, 40 like we've seen today, and we will see again for the day tomorrow. So far in the month of June in Orlando, we've not had an inch of rain yet. We're actually sitting below an inch of rain, which interestingly is below average through this point in the month. You can see the rain by day so far. Their average rain for the month of June is actually closer to about 6.5 inches of rain. So we've got a lot more that should be coming at some point. In Daytona Beach, a little bit more rain. You see there on the third of the month, we had over an inch of rain. And for the month so far, we're sitting at about 1.75 inches of rain. So a little bit wetter from earlier in the month on the East Coast, but lately, the last several days, a week or so, there hasn't been much. And that heat index over the next several days will float around 100. It'll come up a little bit on Friday. That's a day with the higher rain chances because there's going to be higher humidity, Garrett. Higher moisture leads to better chance of rain clouds and therefore thunderstorms. So with a higher heat index on Friday, I think that'll be the highest rain chance we have for this week and possibly a while. Hottest spot on the board right now is Gainesville at 95. It's 93 in DeLane, 95 in Claremont. We do have soccer tonight in Orlando. Let me read that to you. Tonight it's the FIFA Club World Cup first stage at Inter & Co Stadium. 6 o'clock start tonight. And the weather should be fine for that. I mean, there could be a thunder shower, but the chances are really quite low. But again, the FIFA Club World Cup first stage at Inter & Co Stadium tonight at 6. We'll keep an eye on that. But the heat index currently is about 100, again, within a few degrees on either side of 100 currently across central Florida. Tonight will be in the mid-70s, partly cloudy, 1 or 2 thunderstorms, not a lot. Tomorrow, just copy, paste, about the mid-90s inland, low 90s at the beaches. And again, Garrett, the headlines to put a bow tie in the forecast, quiet tropics, see how long that lasts, probably a while still. Hotter than normal and drier than normal overall, with the one exception being Friday. If you have Friday afternoon or evening plans, there will be, we think, a lot more storms, especially around the populated I-4 corridor for your Friday evening, so take note of that.
Quiet in the Atlantic, not so quiet in the Pacific right now.
Yeah, you know, that's interesting. It's a great question, Garrett, that you ask, because a lot of people have wondered, is there a correlation between the two basins? And while what drives them, there are some of the same factors that drive both basins' activity, meaning if we're in a La Nina, generally both are active. But there are some there are two different basins. Very rarely do you see a storm cross between them, meaning if you could conceptualize a map, one going across Central America from the Caribbean and then entering the Pacific. It happens rarely. So the point is they're two separate, and while one may be very active and one's quiet, we can't look at that and say, oh, it's just a year for the Pacific, it's blazing active, the Atlantic's quiet, it'll stay that way. Because last year it started the opposite and then it ended the other way. So, it is an interesting observation, but at least statistically from what the research shows and the Hurricane Center says, there's not much we can take for projecting forward because it's really active there and really quiet here.
Yeah, good perspective. Fox 35 Storm Team Meteorologist Noah Berggren, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, sir.
As we go to break, we will give you a live look at Inter & Co Stadium ahead of the kickoff of the FIFA Club World Cup in Orlando tonight at 6 o'clock. Less than 2 hours until that game gets underway. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we will be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Garrett Wymer here with you on YouTube and on Fox Local. It was a long night last night to cap off a long legislative session, an extended session that went more than 100 days, actually. That's how long it took to pass a budget, but the lawmakers finally did that after 11 o'clock last night, sending those appropriations bills to the governor's desk. This afternoon on Florida Live, when we had Politico Playbook Tuesday with Politico Florida, spoke with Gary Fineout, a Politico reporter, joined us live from Tallahassee to talk about the budget and what the governor might do.
Yeah, well, only took 105 days to get there. Normally a session is 60 days, but this time it took quite a bit longer. But yes, they are finally done. And now we get to see what the governor does and whether or not he's going to use his veto pen as he has in the past, where he's a lot of times taken out a lot of odd items in the budget.
Let's talk a little bit about the contents of the budget and what kind of stands out to you. What sticks out to you?
Well, I think what stands out in one big fashion, of course, it's a smaller budget than last year, considerably smaller, and then sort of what they wound up doing in the sort of the tax arena. Maybe people have caught the news and talk about property taxes and big sales tax cuts and stuff like that. And in the end, none of that happened this year. Instead, there's going to be, for most Floridians, it's going to be some modest savings. There's going to be a month-long back-to-school sales tax holiday that's going to be permanent from now on. It's going to be the same time every year. There's, things like batteries are now no longer going to have taxes, and disaster supplies and stuff like sunscreen and things of that. So there's a lot of little stuff like that, but we didn't get the really big, huge things. And then, and then there's some, they did put in some funding, more funding for education. It's going to be interesting though to see how that all sort of translates and transmits down to school districts. One of the things they did is they're actually relying on more property taxes to help pay for schools in the coming year. Most people may not realize that while your property taxes are charged locally, school districts have to take in a certain amount of money from property taxes in order to get matching money from the state. And so this year, the legislature said, we want you to sort of charge a certain amount. And it's kind of an interesting decision to make when there's been all this talk about how high the property taxes are. So those are some of the things that do stand out to me. There's lots of other little things like there's going to be a DOGE effort at the local level that's going to be directed by the governor's office. A couple other big things they did is they did put a lot of money in reserves, one of the main budget reserves, and they also dedicated more money to sort of buy down debt that the state has. And it's interesting that they're doing all that, and they're talking about how they want to be prudent, but there's sort of an acknowledgement that the economy may go south in the near future, and they are taking steps that could sort of help them weather any storm.
You talked about the length of this session. It was it took a long time for this budget deal to come together. Why do you think things were so difficult during this year's session?
Well, I think it came down to is the fact that you had one chamber that sort of wanted to kind of stay the course, and they wanted to kind of have spending levels and dedicate money to programs that was not in line with the other chamber. I mean, basically, you had the House was very insistent upon cutting the budget and spending less. And initially they tied it to this big sales tax rate reduction, which ultimately did not pass. But the final budget is considerably smaller. And you had the other chamber that wanted to. I mean, there was Senate President Albritton had a program called Rural Renaissance, which in essence was an economic development program aimed at rural counties. That didn't pass, and he had to give that up in sort of brokering a deal with the House. So what the other big thing that happened is that they reached an initial deal on tax cuts and spending back in early May, but then the Senate broke away from that deal after Governor DeSantis indicated that he may veto the tax cut that the House was talking about. So that sort of just added to the mix and the uncertainty. And it just took a long time for them to sort of come together on where they all felt comfortable with the amount of tax cuts and the amount of spending in the final bill.
Any indication or any idea what the governor might do with this? Anything? Has he hinted at any aspects of this that he would line item veto?
Well, I think the governor did previously indicate that he was dissatisfied with some of the things that the House was doing. And so we'll see. He's on a trade mission to Paris right now. He does have a quick turnaround. The end of the fiscal year is the end of this month, so he does need to act on the budget relatively quickly. But this governor in the past has been very willing to use his veto pen and to slash a lot of spending. So I think the question is, how is that all going to play out? As I mentioned, it was a bumpy relationship between the governor, especially in the House, over the last several months. So is he going to show his displeasure with their resistance to parts of his agenda? And that's what we're going to have to wait to see. And then what's interesting is I also, there's some gallows humor, I guess, for lack of a better word, that there's some legislators you think, well, we might be coming back here soon. Because the governor does have a penchant at times for calling them back into special sessions when there's other things that he wants.
I know you had the chance to speak with the Senate President and the House Speaker as well about the property tax issue, which sounds like things are alive for that for the next session.
Well, so we've been told. I mean, certainly it is now a very elevated issue. They've all talked about it. The governor's talked about it, and I think that the point is, well, but where do they wind up? You have the House has a select committee that they've created, and they're going to look at the issue, and they're kind of considering some proposals. And then you have the tax cut bill they're going to spend $1 million on a study that's going to be done by the economists and some outside consultants as to all the ramifications. I mean, the plain fact is that your local property taxes, they go to cities, they go to counties, to schools, and but sort of the parameters of how much you can charge and how people's value is calculated is controlled by the Constitution. So if you want to make any changes there, you have to pass a constitutional amendment. And so I think, the goal remains to get something on the ballot for 2026. What it is clear, at least at this point in time, is that the governor once floated an idea of a rebate that would go out to homeowners by the end of this year. That never gained traction. So as of right now, that idea is dead. And so it's a question of, what will they do next? Now, it's important to note that the session actually starts early next year. It starts in January. So hopefully we'll have a good idea of where everything's going to land by March.
Well, Gary, are you finally able to get some rest now?
We'll see.
At least for now, maybe. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, and we will be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I am Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. And this afternoon, we are continuing to follow up on this story of the Brevard County infant death investigation resulted in the arrest of a Volusia County man. Fox 35's Randy Hildreth joins me live now via Zoom. Randy, I know you talked with the Brevard County Sheriff's Office. What can you tell us about this investigation?
Yeah, I just spoke with them within the last 30 minutes or so to get an update about the case. One, we know the person in custody. His name is Donovan Winter. He is currently in the jail here in Brevard County. This is moments after he was arrested earlier today in DeLand. He is in jail again with no bond here in Brevard County, and he's charged with felony murder and aggravated child abuse. Now, to give you context, we first reported this story back in 2021 when the sheriff's office announced that they were investigating an infant, a 2-month-old, found dead at a home in Merritt Island. And from that moment until today, they have been investigating the circumstances of that baby's death, trying to figure out what happened to this baby and who caused the injuries. The medical examiner did the autopsy report and found that the baby had multiple head injuries. And so then it was determining, okay, well, if this is, the circumstances of what happened leading up to the baby's death, how did the baby get these injuries and who would have been responsible? And according to the sheriff's office, after their lengthy investigation, everything pointed back to Donovan Winter.
Yeah, you say lengthy investigation. I mean, this was a case that happened back in 2021. You're talking 4 years.
And that was one of the things that we talked about with this interview with the sheriff's office about the length of this investigation. And one of the things that they emphasized is that it takes time. Winter was not the only person in the home at the time. They confirmed that the child's mother was also in the home at the time, and she discovered that the baby was not breathing, and it died the next morning when she woke up, went to feed the baby. But then they had to, one, look at when these injuries were sustained, if these were newer injuries or if these were older injuries. And once they narrowed down the time frame for the injuries, had to figure out who was with the baby at the time. And they said that took some time, considering that there were 2 people inside the home. One of the things that they said really pointed, from their perspective, pointed the finger at Winter was that in multiple interviews, they say his story changed. She didn't give a lot of details about what Winter said happened, but according to the Brevard County Sheriff's Office, over the course of this investigation, they say his story changed, and that, from their perspective, let them know that he may have been the person responsible, and now he is in custody.
At this point, do we have any indication what investigators believe actually happened?
We don't know what may have caused these injuries. We don't know the circumstances of, what caused the injuries. That's one of the questions that I asked. And we also don't know why, a potential motive for the alleged acts. One of the things that Todd Goodyear with the Brevard County Sheriff's Office mentioned that he has seen, unfortunately, cases like this over the course of his time with the Sheriff's Office. And he says, unfortunately, sometimes parents at this, 2 months old, that the child is crying a lot and parents are having, trouble figuring out what to do to make a baby stop crying. And so he was like, he said he doesn't know this for sure, but based on his experience, it may be believed that Winter was trying to stop the baby from crying and allegedly did something to the baby to cause multiple head injuries, which resulted in the baby's death.
Oh my gosh, a tragedy no matter which way you look at it. Fox 35's Randy Hildreth, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
We are also following up on a story, another story in Volusia County, where a suspected illegal immigrant was arrested on New Smyrna Beach over an open beer can. I'm going to bring in Fox 35's Chris Lindsay, who joins us live now via Zoom. And Chris, what have you learned about this situation?
Well, in New Smyrna Beach, the Volusia County deputies were patrolling. They allegedly saw a man named Isaiel Martinez Sanchez with an open beer bottle. So they approached him. After further questioning, they determined that they say that he said he's from Cuba, that he got here in 2023. They contacted ICE and they claimed, they placed a detainer on him. So he was arrested for that initial alleged infraction of having a beer on the beach, drinking on the beach. And then he was placed on an ICE detainer, accused of being an illegal immigrant, and he's being held in Volusia County Branch Jail.
Is that something typically that that deputies do enforce that strictly to the point of arresting someone?
Yes, I reached out to Volusia County Sheriff's Office. They say this is a routine arrest. This is a routine check that they do. They're very strict about drinking on the beach here. There is a no tolerance policy that is an ordinance that is throughout the shore here. So that is something that they enforce often.
So what's the next step now for this suspect?
Well, again, he's being held on that initial infraction of drinking on the shore, so you have to handle that. But then you also he'll be in contact with ICE, and they'll determine what happens next.
All right, Fox 35's Chris Lindsay, we appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Thank you.
We are going to take a quick break here, but we will be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. New data from the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission shows that Brevard County is leading the state right now with the most manatee deaths so far this year. Joining us live now via Zoom is Fox 35's Esther Bauer. And Esther, we appreciate you joining us. Certainly not the information from that report that folks wanted to see, I'm sure.
Absolutely not. This is something we've unfortunately been struggling with for so many years now. Sea cows just struggling on the Space Coast. In previous years, we've seen sea cows literally starving to death. There hasn't been enough seagrass for them to eat. So FWC was all hands on deck trying to feed them themselves, throwing lettuce into the water. But this year, we're still struggling here on the Space Coast, but manatee advocates are more concerned about bad boat behavior. And here near the water, near the Indian River, and we have signs scattered all throughout saying slow speed, minimum wake. This is a slow zone for boats. And unfortunately, in the new report, they're not seeing manatees starving here on the Space Coast, but what they are seeing is just a heightened threat of boating strikes killing manatees. So across the entire state, we've seen 407 sea cows die. Here on the Space Coast, we've seen 84. Lee County is very close behind with 83 manatees being killed. There's other things out there causing them to die still in terms of cold stress and perinatal stress. which is ultimately a manatee gives birth to a baby and the baby dies soon after. Both of those take a little bit more time to study. If we're thinking about how water quality could be killing some of these sea cows too, that's all going to take a lot more time. But experts are really sounding the alarm on bad boat behavior, because that is something that we can change quickly. If you're staying in deeper water, if you're not going over seagrass beds, if you're wearing polarized glasses so you can maybe spot a manatee a little bit easier, all of that can help. There is tremendous amount of work going into the waterway, trying to restore it, get seagrass back up to par, improve the water quality. But it is just a bit frustrating for advocates to see all these deaths and just a spike in boats killing the manatees.
Yeah, I can understand that frustration because we've talked before about the seagrasses. And so, from one perspective of those advocates, I'm sure it's encouraging that they're not seeing as many, manatees starving. So that kind of echoing, yes, we are making progress in that one area. But now you're just dealing with other things that still have the same result.
Absolutely. And so that's what they're really saying is, like, we do want to focus on this is, quote unquote, good news, because the mass starvation that we saw, we saw thousands die in 1 year. We did not see any babies being born because these mothers didn't even have enough body weight to carry babies, or if they were giving birth, they were stillborn calves. So we are past that. That was a quote unusual mortality event. Good news, in this mid-year data pool, we're not seeing that. We're not seeing these unusual factors just, killing manatees in droves. But as far as the deaths still happening, we don't want to see human behavior causing them to die. And so that's why they're sounding the alarm. We have 6 more months or so in the year, hoping to bring those numbers down, and boating behavior can really help. When you are out, something I thought you mentioned, seagrass, is obviously not driving over seagrass, because number one, manatee could be there feeding, so you could ultimately strike it. But then when you do kind of pull up those beds with your boat, years and years, a lot of money, a lot of work has gone into even regrowing that seagrass bed, and it can take a ton of time to see it come back. So you're just trying to stay in that deeper water, not going near the seagrass where we know that manatees could be feeding. And if they're not feeding there, the boats could ultimately be getting rid of their food source if their propellers are kind of peeling it up.
Why Brevard County? Why do you think the issue is we're seeing the issue worse there as opposed to some of the other areas?
But we do have, a ton of the Indian River Lagoon system in our backyard. People love the Space Coast. A lot of boaters love the Space Coast. We have, a lot of just traffic here. And so unfortunately, I think where there's more boats, there's just more opportunity for these strikes to happen. Researchers can't really pinpoint the exact reason as to why, but we just know the Indian River Lagoon has been a hub for these manatees. It's where we saw a ton of them die when they were starving. It's where we are seeing a lot of boat users in the water. And so all of that just kind of plays into why they could be dying mostly here.
All right. Well, we certainly hope some of those educational efforts help to slow down some of this human cause of those things, because they are such beautiful and unique creatures. I think in a lot of ways we'd hate to lose more of them.
Yes, and one more thing I'll put out there is, if you are on the water and maybe you accidentally strike a sea cow, Florida law is written where you're not going to be cited or arrested or ticketed if you call in the strike. It's written so that you will call in the strike. Getting rehabbers, we have rehabbers all over the Space Coast, all over Central Florida. These sea cows, you mentioned, they are gentle, but they're also resilient. They can survive strikes. They just need to get proper help. So just really encouraging boaters, call it in if you see a manatee struggling. Some good news, 75 this year have been cited in distress and are being helped, hopefully can be released back. So there is some positives there, but boaters can help if they see something safe.
All right. Good to keep in mind. Fox 35's Esther Bauer, we appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Today, the Orlando Magic officially introduced Desmond Bane as their newest member of the team. We carried that for you live this afternoon on Florida Live during our 2 o'clock hour right here on Fox Local and on YouTube. As we talked about earlier with John, we certainly hope he may be the missing piece, something that will really help the Magic go further in the playoffs, maybe make them even potentially, knock on wood, championship contenders, dare I say it. We will see. Time will tell. But today, Jamal Mosley, the head coach of the Magic, spoke about how Bane fits into this offense and what they expect to see from him. And also talked a little bit about Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Cole Anthony, the players that the Magic parted with in order to get Desmond Bane from the Grizzlies.
Coach, what have the last 48 hours been like for you since you're in the team acquired Desmond Bane, and your initial thoughts on the acquisition?
I think it's been busy. It's been a little bit of a whirlwind, but just welcoming him in, being able to get acclimated a little bit. But it's just been exciting to know the caliber of player we're getting, but more the caliber of human being that he is. You get calls and texts from guys and understanding who he is and what he represents and what he's meant to that community there, but also to that team.
When you envision him alongside Paolo, Franz, and Jalen and the rest of the guys, what do you see?
Space. You see a lot of space, his ability to shoot the basketball, create his own shot, handle the basketball in different areas, but just being able to make quick plays, quick decisions, spacing on the floor for those guys to be able to allow us to get to the basket. He's used to playing fast, and that's what we've talked about, being able to speed our game up, and so his ability to do that, he'll fit right in when it comes to that.
Jeff talked about not having to give up Jalen or Paolo or Franz to get a guy of this caliber. For you to have that continuity and just add a piece, how big of a game changer is that instead of swapping a key piece?
I think it's huge for us. We've talked about our core guys and what they're capable of doing and what they've done when they're on the court together. I think not having to give those pieces up and the continuity that these guys have created with one another is huge. And like I said, Desmond is another young man that's going to walk in and fit right in because of how he represents himself both on and off the court.
When you don't have to give up any of those main North Star pieces, you lose KCP. You go out in as a veteran to help his team, and Cole, who you've coached since you first started. How is it going to be not having those guys, and how to fix all of that?
Well, you guys have always understood how we feel about our group, the continuity that has been created, the chemistry that has developed, over the time that we've been here. So I speak first to the human being of KCP and Cole, and what they've meant to this community, what they've meant to this organization, what they've meant to me as a coach. They've always been professional. They've always been a spirit and hardworking individuals that have cared about this community. And so that part of it is what, you feel, but you also understand that you're going to see them on the other side when you play them again. But for having Desmond step in and what he's capable of doing, he's going to fit right in with this group, with the continuity and the chemistry right away.
Coach, how do you feel about the ramped up expectations, the pressure? I mean, everybody's going to be expecting you guys to advance.
Yeah, and that's great. And we've said that from the beginning, and my kids said it to me last night. We were actually watching one of the tennis series on Netflix, and they talk about the saying, pressure is a privilege. And I think that's a great thing for this group to understand how we need to grow, how we have to develop, how we have to keep challenging each other to get better, both on and off the court, how we hold each other accountable in what we're trying to do. And, it's going to come as a process of what we're trying to accomplish. Wins and losses, we'll talk about that, as next year comes. But I think more importantly that we're sticking with a process to make ourselves become one of the best teams that we can be.
As you started kind of diving into Desmond as a player and studying his tape, what stands out about him that maybe we wouldn't see beyond just like the shooting and kind of like the skills that we can kind of count and see?
Well, his ball handling. I think people have not, given him that much credit for it. I mean, he's had the ball in his hands more than people have realized, and I think that's a big key. He played off it. He knows how to play without the basketball, so that's a big piece. And then when those guys went down, for that group over there, he had the ball in his hand a ton. And people also, because he can shoot, you don't register how well he can get to the basket. And so I think those are small pieces that you may get overlooked at times. But he's a dedicated hard worker that's going to put those reps in to do whatever's asked of the team to win ball games.
Consistent three-point shooting has been kind of a missing piece to the Magic's puzzle. How does he fill that role?
He's very consistent, and I know his catch and shoot threes are huge, and he can also create his own shot. I think that's very important as well, because as teams continue to load up and they sit in the paint and they're waiting to stop our attacks, his ability to create his own shot but also create and for others is going to be huge.
Desmond said that you're a cool cat. The video of you guys dapping up, when you guys first met each other, now that he's on the team. But to be viewed in that sense of a coach that lets players be themselves, just how redeeming is that for you?
I started in this business with player development, and
Coach,
continue to load up and they sit in the paint and they're waiting to stop our attacks. His ability to create his own shot but also create and for others is going to be huge.
Desmond said that you're a cool cat. The video of you guys dapping up, when you guys first met each other, now that he's on the team. But to be viewed in that sense of a coach that lets players be themselves, just how redeeming is that for you?
I started in this business with player development, and it's about the relationships that you have with these guys, but it's also making sure that you put them in the best position to be successful. And I truly believe it. I think the greatest teams are teams that are connected in that locker room. And our job as coaches is to put them in the best position to be successful. And then I think it's their job once they hit the floor to be so connected that it just becomes an easy chemistry that they can help me become a better coach and our coaching staff become better coaches because they're so connected.
Was that like a top 5 DAP of your NBA career?
That was pretty close.
Coach, for the front office to say they're going to be aggressive, but then to see them actually do it and transition to this win now mode, how does that change your mindset at all?
It just affirms exactly what we've continued to talk about. Jeff and I communicate at a high level when it comes to these things, just being able to be on the same page and understand exactly what direction we're moving into. And I think that says a lot about the organization, about ownership, about our management, and that we're willing to just continue to collaborate and get on the same page no matter what's happening. And it's going to look different at times, but as long as we continue to communicate it, that's exactly the most important piece for this group and us moving forward.
He's the first player the Magic have brought in through a trade to Markel since 2019. So how big of a moment is this for the Magic to make this move into, I don't know if you call it all in, but to go all in?
It just says that you're willing to understand what the organization wants and needs, what our community has been talking about, what our fans have been talking about, what our players have been talking about, and what we need to do in order to take that next step. That we weren't just going to sit aside and hope something was going to happen and think that we could change it just out of nowhere. And I think the ability to go do this says a lot for where we're going and how we're going to adapt to whatever's necessary in order for us to take that next step with this organization and with this team.
On the other side of that, it's been roughly a month and a half since the season and since the playoff series ended. What, as you've kind of gone back and looked back at the season, maybe look back at that playoff series, obviously there's maybe still some work to do with the team this season, but what have you learned that you hope to carry forward into this offseason and into training camp?
Well, I really try to hit home with our guys. What if they're watching these series right now and seeing how they're playing and what they're doing, but more importantly, I think it needs to always be addressed that we did go through a lot of things throughout the year, and so to have a whole team is going to be very important, that our guys know we're not changing the chemistry, we're not changing some of the things that we were able to be successful in. We just have to get better at it. So if each guy comes back 1 or 2% better than what we did last year, along with the chemistry and adding new pieces, then we're giving ourselves a big time chance to be in a very good position.
Coach, what's your thought on successful teams making coaching changes? I mean, what does that say about your profession?
I really believe it's, we know what we sign up for. And I've said this time and time again, the best and the only thing a coach can do when he walks into his office or walks into the building every day is, did he do his part to put these guys in the best position available to be successful? And did he do it the way that he wanted or she wanted to do it? And if you can look yourself in the mirror and say that you've done it that way, let the chips fall where they may, because we've seen that coaches have been extremely successful and got let go. We've seen coaches that have not been that successful and keep the job. We've seen coaches of the year be let go, and that's part of this profession. So we understand it's not personal. It's part of what we've signed up for, but that's where you have to look yourself in the mirror and can you say that you've done everything in your heart and your spirit, that you're doing right by the game of basketball. And if you get let go in that regard, then you just have to live with that.
Coach Jamal Mosley earlier today speaking with reporters after we heard from Desmond Bane, which we brought to you live here earlier today on Fox 35 News Plus. That's going to do it for us here on Fox 35 News Plus. We will send things out to Studio B for the start of Fox 35 News at 5, which begins in just seconds right here on Fox Local.
Right now on Fox 35 News at 5, a massive theft ring busted.
It was the largest stolen goods seizure I've ever seen.
From clothes to tools and sporting goods, Central Florida's making it clear if you steal, you will be found.
A beer on the beach lands a man in handcuffs.
Unfortunately, I got a ticket at the branch jail. What?
And a one-way ticket out of the country.
Save our sea cows. The Space Coast is seeing a surge in manatee deaths. So, what's killing them off?
But first, we start with breaking news. This man is now behind bars, accused of killing his own 2-month-old baby boy. Thanks for joining us. I'm Luann Sorrell.
And I'm John Brown. It happened 4 years ago on Merritt Island. Now the sheriff says this guy is right where he belongs. Fox 35's Randy Hildreth joins us live right now. So, Randy, that baby had multiple head injuries.
Yeah, good evening to you both. Just a terribly tragic situation, but investigators with the Brevard County Sheriff's Office say today they have answers with this case. I want to show viewers that picture again of Donovan Winter. It was moments after he was arrested today in DeLand. Now, as you mentioned, the Brevard County Sheriff's Office believes that he killed his own 2-month-old son. This investigation actually started 4 years ago when deputies were called to a home in Merritt Island and found that newborn dead. Investigators say the mom realized something was terribly wrong when she went to feed the baby in the morning. The medical examiner determined the child had multiple head injuries. Now, Winter is charged with felony murder and aggravated child abuse. He's being held in the Brevard County Jail with no bond.
You know, it's one of the worst crimes I can think of. You've got a 2-month-old who cannot take care of themselves and is totally dependent on others for their care. And he violated that trust and caused the death of this child.
Now, coming up new at 6, you'll hear more from the Sheriff's Office about the time it took to make an arrest in this case. I'll send it back to you live this evening. Randy Hildreth, Fox 35 News.